outdoor exhibit when it exploded at the fair in Medina County, about 25 miles outside of Cleveland Sunday evening. It blasted shrapnel and hot oil across the fairground, seriously burning some of the fair goers.
You're watching CNN Headline News.
Puerto Ricans on Vieques are calling for the Navy to stop bombing exercises immediately. Lance Armstrong nabs his third straight Tour de France win. And a trip to a county fair in Ohio turns deadly. At least 4 people are dead and dozens injured after a steam engine exploded at a county fair in Ohio. It was being moved for an outdoor exhibit when it exploded at the fair in Medina County, about 25 miles outside of Cleveland Sunday evening. It blasted shrapnel and hot oil across the fairground, seriously burning some of the fair goers.
Fairgrounds exploded and it hit the pedestrians and so forth. There were some children struck also.
It sounded like if you took about 20 M80s and shot them all off together. It rocked the ground. You could feel the vibration even in the ground.
Emergency crews from all over rushed the victims to more than half a dozen area hospitals, all with severe burns from the engine's hot oil and steam.
There was no fire afterwards. There was, the injuries were all immediate and in great number.
We are told that 2 police officers were also hurt in the explosion, and the county wants to try and find out as much about that steam engine as possible. We hear now that the folks who knew most about it were killed in the explosion when that steam engine went off. So we're going to go to that 7:30 news conference, get as many details as we can, get back with you. Cynthia, back to you in the studio.
Okay, thanks, Harry. Now, medical personnel say most of the injuries are burns. The steam engine exploded hot oil and shrapnel. Rescue crews came in by ground, by air from all over Cleveland, Akron, and even Pittsburgh. Dozens of people in need of immediate attention. Medical personnel on the scene say they were shocked at the injuries. At this hour, some 48 other victims are at Southwest, Akron, Medina, Richmond, Lodi, and Cleveland's Metro Health Medical Center. The daughter of one of the victims who lost his life in the blast talked to our Bill Saffos. He joins us now from the fairgrounds with continuing team coverage on this tragedy. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Cynthia. Good morning, everybody. Obviously, a lot of lives have changed here in Medina County, especially the families of those who lost a loved one. Now, Sheriff Neil Hassinger here has said that they are still searching to get to the bottom of what exactly went wrong. However, it is difficult to do because all the experts on steam engines perished in last night's accident, including Dennis Jungbluth, whose daughter talked with me.
Steam engines were his most passionate hobby, and if there was any way that he had to go, I don't think he minded this. I mean, like I said, I'm a Christian, and I firmly believe that God has everything happen for a reason.
A lot of shouting last night as this happened, a lot of tears and a lot of people running to help those who were injured. We've caught some of that on tape for you. But I also want to tell you, as you heard Harry mention, there were 4 people altogether that lost their lives in this accident, including the 2 people who owned this steam engine. Clifford Kovacic was the owner, the 45-year-old. He and his 27-year-old son, William, perished in this accident. And they are 2 of the people that investigators wanted to talk with. However, they cannot. But again, the fair here in Medina is scheduled to open at 9 o'clock this morning in memory, I should say, to those who lost their lives and those who were hurt.
If you met him, you would never forget him. He lived every single day to the fullest, and he didn't care what other people thought about him, and he did what he loved to do.
A lot of families take part in the fair here every year, and a lot of them are the families that come back year after year. It is a close-knit community, but this morning there is mourning and there is anguish. Obviously, a story we will continue to follow. Harry Boomer will be back with you with what happens at that press conference. Back to you.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Recapping our top story, 4 people are dead after an antique steam engine exploded at the Medina County Fairgrounds. Dozens more are injured. Most of the injuries burns because the engine was full of oil and shrapnel sprayed out in a 125-foot radius. They're calling it the worst disaster ever at the fairgrounds. The fair is expected to open today, but some areas will be off limits. Now, Medina County Sheriff's officials will update the story this morning at 7:30 from the fairgrounds. We'll bring you that news conference live. Our Bill Saffels will also be joining Jane Clayson and Brian Gumble at 7 a.m. with live updates on the morning show. So for the very latest on the steam engine explosion, keep it right here on Home Team 19 News. There is more news ahead. A look at the full Dominion Dual Doppler forecast about 5 minutes.
Was there, and they had lost the power there at the hospital. Marshall, what's the latest there?
Well, the power is back on. Came on just before 6 o'clock, so that's the good news here. And Don Conwell is here. It's your husband, who is one of the officers who was hurt in this blast. Tell me how he's doing this morning and what the family's doing.
He's doing good. He's stable, and he's actually, to his old self, he's making jokes and trying to bribe people to give him some water to drink because he's thirsty. He does have burns on his arms and his legs. His bulletproof vest saved his life.
Tell me about that, because you said he had it on, and tell me what that did for him.
You can see a perfect outline of where his vest was. The officers that came and got me told me that his vest was all tore up, and you can see where the shrapnel pieces like shredded it. And basically, it saved his life. You can see where the burns start and end where his vest was.
And saved his partner too.
Oh yes, definitely, definitely.
You said that they both have burns, 25 to 30% of their bodies, but they're on enough medication at the moment that they're not feeling a lot of pain, that sort of thing?
Right, yeah, that's true.
Okay. What about you? You said that everybody's been helping you a lot. You've only been married for 2 months.
Yeah, 2 months. What a great wedding present, I guess, but he's the love of my life, so we're going to make it through it. And he actually, the first thing he said to me is, "I'm so sorry to put you through this," and I looked at him like, "Don't worry about me, I am fine, I am worried about you." So he's a great guy.
He's still worried about everybody else.
Yeah, he is. He's actually really worried about his partner, Dave. They actually talked on the phone a little bit, and they're doing good. Like, they're just really worried about each other. They're more worried about each other than they are themselves. Yeah.
Don, thank you. Thank
welcome.
you. We'll talk to you again in a few minutes. It's been a long 24 hours here at the Akron Children's Hospital. A lot of folks still in the hospital this morning at Metro, at Akron General, and Medina General, Wadsworth, Lodi, Southwest, people all over the place from this accident. We'll keep you updated later on.
Well, thanks, Marshall, and we certainly wish everyone there the best.
Yeah, the officers are doing better. That is, unfortunately, there are families this morning that are mourning the loss of 4 people who died in this explosion. We can tell you they are 46-year-old Alan Kimble, 45-year-old Clifford Kovacic, 27-year-old William Kovacic, and 58-year-old Dennis Jungbluth.
And every one of them is from Medina County.
A reminder, there's a news conference coming up at 7:30. We will be staffing that and also bringing it to you live, so we'll have the very latest on that. Time now to take a look at our other local headlines for this morning.
Yeah, Juwan is standing by with those headlines. Good morning, Juwan.
From Home Team 19 and Home Team 43 News.
Welcome back. Breaking news to report. News conference underway right now at the Medina County Fairgrounds. Let's go right there now and take a listen.
The police department and other state agencies, and Chief Hertnick can describe the injuries, the number of injuries, and so forth. He'll give you that description now.
We, county's EMS services and helicopters, transported 49 total victims, not including the 3 that were dead on the scene on our arrival. The injuries range from minor burns to major burns and shrapnel injuries. There were ages ranging from the very young to babies and strollers to the very old. Like the sheriff said, we're conducting a thorough investigation. The investigation is not near complete. It's probably just in the infancy of being started. We probably won't have a report for days, maybe weeks, on exactly how this incident occurred or why this incident occurred.
The vehicle itself that exploded was removed from the scene. That is in a safe area at this time where it'll be held so that it could be gone through to scientifically determine what exactly may have happened. We have recovered shrapnel as far as 390 feet from the site as we speak now. A lot of personal items have been recovered, and all of those things have been secured. As far as the safety of the fairgrounds at this point, the area has been scanned by officials and directors throughout the night, all night long, so that we can open the fair safely this morning, and that's our intent. But as far as the safety and security of the grounds, the Sheriff's Department and the City Police are handling that, and the scene itself. We've treated it as a crime scene the entire night, and investigators have been working through the night to accomplish their goals. So I'll refer anything else that you may have in regards to the fair to our Fair Board President.
If anybody have any questions, we'll be glad to answer the questions for you. We'll try to with the information we have.
Was anyone on the scene? Were any of you there when this happened?
I was in the area when the explosion occurred. In fact, I had followed that thrashing machine down the street because I was actually at a store picking up some items for the security committee, and in fact was behind that harvester as it approached the fairgrounds.
Can you tell us if the steam engine needs to be inspected before it comes to the fairgrounds? Does it have to undergo any kind of inspection before it's allowed to come on the grounds?
I don't know whether that's required by the state for inspections on steam boilers or not. I have no knowledge of that.
As far as we know, there's no inspections on this type of implement, as far as we've been able to find out.
In actuality, that type of machine, I mean, that is something that a collector puts together and refurbishes. And so only the operator or the owner of that particular piece of equipment knows any of the safety problems or any concerns with that equipment, so it's really up to them. This particular equipment was driven onto the grounds, which was unusual because it's usually car carried onto the grounds.
Would you be allowing other steam engines that are parked out there to do another demonstration like the one last night, or are they being told to just be a static display?
We usually only have static displays. This engine that blew up was not operating on the grounds. He in fact had driven on the grounds and was still coming into the grounds. So it wasn't a function of the fair at that point.
As we understand this, sir, that machine was not supposed to be where it was. It was on pavement. It should have been on a dirt road. Was it at an improper position when it exploded?
Well, it was on the grounds and it was being positioned, which would be normal.
We understand it was in the process of being cited for driving on the pavement when it should have been on the
Officers were talking to the individual about driving on the streets with it, and that's about all we'd comment on for that.
And those two officers were hurt at the time?
Those two officers are also injured and are in the hospital.
As far as injuries are concerned, do you know how many people still have life-threatening injuries?
Sure.
I don't believe, no, we don't know those numbers today, right, this morning. We know there was numerous that were very serious injuries.
We're looking at approximately 49 people that were actually injured that we can account for at this point. We may have further today that actually walked out that we were unaware of, but we know at least 49 that were injured at this point.
In light of the 4 that were killed and the 49 injured, why are you opening the fair with this dark cloud hanging over this event?
Dave?
The board met last night and came to a decision that we should continue on.
Why?
We would almost ask the same question, why not? It's a situation that's very unfortunate, certainly. And it's a limited area of the grounds. It's nothing that is going to operate as far as the wrongful safety of the fairgoer or anything like that. There's a lot of planning that goes into putting on this fair, and we want people to be able to come and enjoy the fair for the week. This is a very unfortunate incident that has occurred, and our hearts go out to those families for that.
Help someone understand who isn't used to this kind of fair, why you would maybe not shut it down the first day just in honor of those who died, or just to give people a breather from this devastating thing that happened.
Dave?
A lot of the livestock here, we're still going to have people here regardless of what goes on, because we still have to take care of what's here. And last night, the board felt that we should go on.
I think we'd be honoring those families by continuing with the fair as opposed to canceling a fair or a fair day because of it. Those people were a part of our fair. The people that have died have been close to many of us on this board. And a lot of those reasonings go into the same reason for having the fair continue and go on.
Megan, would you tell us a little bit about Mr. Kovacic and some of the other people that you've worked with these people before?
Yeah, I don't want to go into it in too much detail. You know, Dave Bertram, our board president, knows those gentlemen even better than I because he was closer to them in the antique power. Dave?
They were great supporters of the fair. They do a lot of the things behind the scene, as well as they took great pride in bringing those engines to the fairgrounds for display. That was their pride and joy. They just loved to show that equipment off so people could see what had transpired over the years in the way of development of equipment.
Any history of a maintenance problem with that particular engine that you are aware of?
We don't know that yet, and we won't know until we get involved with the people that put it together and talk to them. So we really can't answer that.
Would you say it take the fairgrounds in the past?
That
we're not. We don't think so. That's usually been carried on in a car hauler, on a vehicle hauler.
Sheriff,
you say it will take about
charges at all in this?
No, I don't see where there'll be any charges against anybody.
You say it will take several days or weeks to...
Who would you be bringing in to determine what caused the explosion, and how would that be done? Can you enlighten us in any way on that?
Of what caused the explosion on the steam engine? We're going to try to contact some people who have the expertise in this type of equipment and have them go over the equipment, and hopefully they'll be able to tell us something about it.
Is that primarily what the investigation will be, talking to experts, or what else will you have to do in the next several days or weeks?
There's going to be numerous things we're going to be doing besides that. We're going to be trying to find witnesses who may have been in there, who left on their own. We're going to try and find any information at all. In fact, basically, we'll handle as any other major investigation. We'll just leave nothing unturned that we can possibly humanly do. We'll do everything we can to find out the information.
Will there be any kind of modifications to procedures what happened last year with the E. coli?
I'm sorry.
Any kind of modification to the procedure as to whether or not you let this kind of equipment continue to come to the fair?
we'll have to sit down and review what the sheriff comes up with and make a determination from there. We haven't had time to think about that one.
These steam engines are probably at every fair in Ohio. As far as any fair I've ever been to, you see this type of a steam engine at it. In fact, I believe there are even steam engine shows in Ohio where they focus just strictly on steam engines. So it's a piece of equipment that's a part of the heritage of the original agriculture people in our area. So it's not an unusual piece of equipment. It's something that's been with us for years and years.
Can you tell us how many years this particular engine has been a part of the fair?
We don't know. We couldn't tell you how many years this particular engine has been there, but as the sheriff said, I mean, this is a piece of equipment that in fact is a steam-driven threshing machine, and it's a part of our heritage.
But considering its age, was there ever any concern about its safety? That this can handle?
There was a couple of these engines that have actually been used on a farm in this community, in this county this year. Mm-hmm. We've had people tell us that they were using it on the farm to try it out. Whether this is one of them, I'm not sure on that yet. We will know shortly.
With what happened last year with the E. coli, can you comment on whether that was part of your decision to keep the fair open today? And are you concerned that the two events in 2 years might distort the reputation of the fair?
We're concerned, but the E. coli had nothing to do with this event.
And also, the E. coli, this explosion, was really something that was out of the hands of anybody, whether it be you, whether it be the fair board. It's just, it's amazing and incredible that it happened to us here. And it's something that's been difficult on everyone in Medina County. We've also lost one of our strongest members here who died just a few weeks back in Kenny Albright. So we've taken some direct hits here at this fair, but the people of Medina County are very, very strong people, and I think you're going to see that the people of this county want to continue moving. That we've been knocked down, but we're not down to stay, and we'll get back up and we'll keep moving.
Are there any memorial plans for the victims' families?
We haven't even had time to think about that. I'm sure it's something the fair board will discuss and the community will discuss. Because most of us sitting here were friends of these men who died at the scene, we all knew them, and we associated with them. So it's not only a professional job we're doing, but it's very personal to each one of us sitting here.
I understand 2 of the injured were 2 Medina City policemen. I believe they're both now at Akron Children's. Is that correct? Any other conditions?
Yeah, they're both in hospitals in Akron, but I don't have an update yet this morning.
Gentlemen, do you feel confident enough in the safety of this fair to bring your families here today?
My family will be here today.
My family will be here.
Mine is here.
And did the delays last night delay any of the startup today? I mean, will everything be able to start on time at 9 o'clock?
Dave, you want to comment on that?
Probably we'll have a slight delay because we've had to wait to we had to get the rides in before we could get some of the other concessionaires set up.
We are backing up entries, and we are allowing late entries to come in because we had to cancel some entries last night for some of the exhibitors and things like that because our concern was too many people on the grounds and too many things going on. So we'll honor those timetables.
To the detective, could you again describe what it was like when this exploded?
It was a sound you'll never forget. I mean, it was a very serious explosion. We knew immediately when it happened that something was wrong, and everyone, including all fair directors and officials, all law enforcement and fire personnel, immediately headed to that area, and it was very visible to what happened. It was very devastating.
Describe it for us, sir, what you saw from the shrapnel and whatever else might have been apparent after the explosion.
It would take you back to Vietnam, sir.
Sheriff, do you guys know what path, first of all, whose machine it was, and what path they brought? You know, what path they took to bring it here?
We, in talking with the officers, we know about, yes, where it came from, and not far from here, how it got here. And this is why the Medina police officers were there. Of course, they were talking to the operator of the vehicle about driving on the roadways, which it was illegal for this type of equipment to do.
Did it just come down Smith?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you determined who was the owner?
I'm not sure. We think we know, but not enough to stay here this morning.
And was it the only steam engine in the exhibit?
It wasn't, no. No,
there's other ones there.
There's other ones there. I think there's, what, 3 more?
3 more.
I believe there's 3 more there.
But it's the only one of its kind?
No, there's another one almost identical to it, sitting right behind it, maybe just a hair smaller, but the same make, same style, sitting there also.
Will they continue to be on display and open to the public at all?
That area of the grounds is going to be closed temporarily to allow the sheriff to complete his investigation.
And they won't move them to anywhere else to exhibit them? They'll stay there in the cordoned off area?
They'll stay there.
And have you learned from those operators what could have caused a steam engine like that to explode?
They were the operators that lost their lives.
But I mean, the operators of the...
they own those also.
Are also the operators
yes.
of the ones? Oh.
Yes.
We lost the expertise last night.
How were the other ones brought on the ground? Do you know?
I'm sorry?
Do you know how the other 3 engines were brought on the ground?
They were carried in.
And did you say that this one is usually carried in, but yesterday it was driven in?
Correct.
Can you tell us about Deputy Conwell? Was he actually saved by wearing a bulletproof vest?
He's a police officer with the city of Medina, and I know that several of our officers from our department did visit with both of those officers last night at the hospital, and it is believed that both officers were saved by their vests. There was shrapnel actually embedded in some of the vests. Some of the burn and peppering from the explosion had gone all the way around the vest, and the vest had pretty much left a pattern on them. So.
Where exactly is the steam engine now? Where was it taken?
We have it in custody so that the Sheriff's Department and investigators can look over that. So.
Was there any indication at all?
You've been listening to a news conference in Medina County, officials talking about the explosion that happened yesterday. 4 people were killed, 49 people injured, including 2 police officers. Officials there describing the scene as a sound they'll never forget, saying it sounded like Vietnam. We'll have another update at 7:55.
This has been a special report from Home Team 19 and Home Team 43 News. From WOIO TV, Home Team 19 News starts right now.
Good morning, everyone. It's 7:55. Let's head out to the Medina County Fairgrounds, where Harry Boomer is standing by live, where officials have just had a news conference started around 7:30 this morning. Harry.
Cynthia, as you say, that news conference just completed. Talking to the chairman of the board of the fair here, with the sheriff's department, the fire department, they're all saying that the most likely it was a buildup of steam inside of that engine that caused the explosion, but they don't know that for sure yet. He said it's going to take a couple of weeks for him to determine exactly what caused the explosion. Some 49 people injured, transported by life flight, by ambulance, away from this scene. 4 people killed. The experts who knew most about these machines and the machine that blew up died in the explosion yesterday. The explosion sent shrapnel, as they say, some 390 feet away, hurting those 49 people. Others may have walked away injured, went home, not to the hospital, but we do know that 49 people were transported to area hospitals. Again, 4 people killed here, a father and son and some others who love this. We asked why today is the fair going to be open, and they said it is in honor of the folks who died here because they really were part of this fair and that they would want this fair to go on. They said it is safe. They said their families are going to be here, and they feel safe enough to invite the public to this fair today that is going to be opening at about 9 o'clock this morning. So as we know now, the investigation will continue. They say at least a couple of weeks before they know exactly what caused this very tragic and deadly explosion of that steam engine here yesterday about 6:30, just as Home Team 19 News was going on first on the scene to tell you about this devastating explosion that sent people to the hospital and 4, unfortunately, to the morgue. Cynthia, back to you.
Okay, thanks, Harry. Again, that fair will open today. We'll see you back here in 30 seconds with more on the weather. Stay with us.
Let's go to the news desk once again. Julie Chen.
Thank you, Brian and Jane. Good morning, everyone. An Ohio County Fair turned deadly Sunday when an explosion killed 4 people and injured dozens. Bill Salfos of our Cleveland station, WOIO, is in Medina, Ohio, with the story. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Julie. Good morning, everybody. Investigators are still here on the scene searching for exactly what went wrong. At a press conference just a few moments ago, the local sheriff talked about how it could be weeks before they find the cause. Left of the antique steam engine tractor when it blew. The scene was unimaginable, even to medical personnel who were visiting the fairgrounds.
When I initially ran over there, it was like horrible. I mean, it was horrible.
As a nurse, you never saw anything like that?
No, never. Saw a big cloud of smoke and big black things, which were the metal things of the engine, were flying at us.
There are victims with severe shrapnel wounds and critical life-threatening burns. Those who were here and weren't hurt tried to do all they could to help.
Everybody screaming and running with buckets of water just pouring on people. We were all pretty scared.
Now, the fair will open as scheduled at 9 o'clock this morning. The sheriff and the fair director say it is in memory to those who lost their lives and were hurt here. Julie.
Bill Salfos in Medina, Ohio this morning. Thank you.
Over to Chris Hernandez, who's been meeting with the people who this tragedy has affected most deeply. Chris?
Thank you, Adam. And of course, there is a lot of pain here in Medina County today. Now, some 4 dozen people were injured by this explosion. Some are still in the hospital. Some are in stable condition. Others are in critical condition, clinging to life this afternoon. Now, the explosion itself happened over there by those other antique steam engines. And for the 4 men who were killed during that explosion, their friends and family are just starting to grieve. The horrible blast damaged forever a circle of family and friends reaching all corners of Medina County. The 4 men who died shared an interest in the steam engine that exploded.
If you needed help, he was there to help you. And if he had the ability to help you, he would help you.
Ray Lurtz knew all 4 men. He's been friends with Cliff Kovacic for more than 15 years. Kovacic was the K here at K&M Construction. Cliff once helped Ray's dad with a personal favor, even while thinking he was helping a total stranger.
He has a special part in our families. You know, if there's a heart of a family, he has a special. My mother appreciates that. So that's just the way he was.
The blast also killed Alan Kimble, Dennis Jungbluth, and another Kovacic, Cliff's son Bill. Bill died with his dad after growing up working with his dad.
I can remember Bill when he was 10 or 11 years old running a roller here on the road because his dad taught him how to run it. And then he just grew with the company.
It wasn't just steam engines. Cliff loved these old cars and trucks. He would bring them to the fair to show every year, and Dennis liked old farm equipment. They shared their interest in our history with their friends, friendships built during years when Medina was still a small town, before suburban sprawl.
It's going to take a word friendship from the community, because everybody could be a friend of Cliff, or Bill, or Alan, or Dennis. And that's what's we're going to miss that.
Now, Cliff Kovacic's wife and daughter were also injured in the blast, but they are alive. Now, tonight at 6, we will have more information about the lives of the other 2 men who died in this explosion, and we'll also hear from a survivor. She will tell us what it was like to be right up against that fence when the steam engine blew. Ted?
Just an awful loss for everybody. Okay, Chris Hernandez and Adam Shapiro, team coverage live from the Medina County Fairgrounds. Thank you both.
Well, immediately after this happened, there really was no time to think, just a job to do. Dozens of paramedics, doctors, and nurses responding to the explosion. And although they had...
David Levine was just starting his shift when word of the explosion reached the hospital.
At that point, we start looking at what resources we have currently here, making sure that we're going to have enough available personnel to adequately handle the situation.
It was the kind of accident everyone had planned for, a response everyone had practiced, but this time it was for real.
We described it as controlled chaos because you know what you need to do, but yet you can't predict the situation, so you have to be ready and able to adapt and handle whatever walks through that door.
While the hospital prepared for patients, life support team member Chuck Stiver was at the scene. Chuck says what he saw was unforgettable.
And very quickly we started to see not only burn victims, but burn victims with major blast injuries, which is unusual.
Despite the surreal scene around them, Chuck says emergency crews stayed focused, even as they treated family, friends, and neighbors.
Even though Medina County has grown, we're still a family. And as people arrived, we knew people we were caring for and people we were treating.
And today, as both Chuck and Dr. Levine step back and look at the response, there is a sense of satisfaction.
It was just amazing how many got there so fast, had the gear, the experience, the expertise, and just jumped in.
And even though you do drills to prepare for them, until you actually have one, you don't know how well you're going to perform. And I thought that we did an outstanding job.
Not too long ago, the life support team actually held a mass casualty drill at the fairgrounds, and many of the paramedics who took part in that drill were there when the explosion occurred. Our team coverage of the Medina Fair tragedy continues throughout our 90 minutes of local news tonight. Still to come in 5 minutes, we'll take you live to Akron to check on the condition of the police officers critically hurt in that explosion. In 15 minutes, we'll take a look at the history of steam-driven engines and see just how dangerous they can be. And at 5:30 on Live on 5, Adam Shapiro is live with us once again from the fairgrounds with reaction to the decision made today to open the fair despite the explosion.
From WOIO TV, Home Team 19 News starts right now.
When the explosion happened, everything went black.
One of the state's biggest events starts with a bang.
When I initially ran over there, it was like horrible. I mean, it was horrible.
An explosion that kills adults, injures children, and shatters all of Medina County.
I heard the explosion, saw a big cloud of smoke and big black things, which were the metal things of the engine were flying.
Tonight, we take you back to the scene of the Medina County Fairgrounds to learn more about the tragedy.
And to relive the disaster that has rocked all of Northeast Ohio.
It shook the ground, it shook windows, I mean, you could feel the surge from it. It was a very deep explosion.
Good evening. The search continues tonight for the cause of that explosion in Medina County.
The blast killed 4 people and injured dozens of others. Tonight, the home team has live team coverage from Medina County, the very place where just 24 hours ago, the fairgrounds there is turned into a battleground. We begin with the home team's Ed Gallick with the latest on the investigation. Ed?
Well, crews have now cleaned up this area where last night an 80-year-old steam engine and tractor exploded. You can still see evidence something went wrong, though, with all this police tape here and also flowers for the victims. But investigators still don't know at this hour what went wrong. 4 people died. Several others remain hospitalized at this hour with injuries including serious burns, also cuts and broken bones from shrapnel. The victims were on or around the steam engine as it was being backed into an exhibit. While the exact cause of the blast remains unclear, investigators suspect some sort of buildup of steam in the machinery, and they are ruling out foul play.
We're conducting a thorough investigation. The investigation is not near complete. It's probably just in the infancy of being started. We probably won't have a report for days, maybe weeks, on exactly how this incident occurred or why this incident occurred.
While the operators of the equipment were among those killed in the blast, let's show you now the complete list of those killed. 58-year-old Dennis Jungbluth, he was on the tractor at the time. Also dead are 45-year-old Clifford Kovacic and his 27-year-old son, William Kovacic, along with 46-year-old Alan Kimble. All of the victims are from Medina County. Now, the steam engine and tractor that exploded, well, it was a little bit bigger than this one right there. Tonight, the families of those who were killed are starting to make funeral arrangements, and many other families are praying and hoping their loved ones are able to pull through and survive the serious injuries they sustained in the blast. Many of the victims are children.
The area, Kovacic and his son and 2 others were killed. Dozens of others were injured, many of them badly burned.
We found some debris as far as 391 feet from the location of the explosion. We've had some buildings perforated with some of the shrapnel. There's some shrapnel on top of roofs and in trees.
Investigators say it could be some time before they can pinpoint the exact cause of this explosion. That's because the person who knew this 110 horsepower steam engine the best is no longer with us today.
It's the owner that puts this back together and brings it back to its original state as much as possible. So only they really knew the faults and the flaws with it, or what they've had to correct it through the years.
Investigators are now picking through the burnt pieces of the old farm tools, searching for answers. They know it exploded, but still have no idea why.
It's obvious that the vehicle was the item that exploded. I mean, it was either, some sort of malfunction in a safety device. Most likely that would occur, but that's what has to be investigated so that we see just what it was.
Whatever happened here, this tragic accident has left people missing many good friends of the fair who brought so much joy to so many people here in Medina County.
Everybody here, 3 of the men I knew personally, so yeah, tremendous tragedy because it affects every one of us here in Medina County.
And again, Medina County investigators are in the process of interviewing witnesses who were here last night when this explosion occurred right around 6:30. It happened while a lot of people were setting up for the fair. They're also trying to talk with experts who know this sort of machinery very well to try and get a better idea of what might have gone wrong. But again, at this point, Tim and Wilma, they are just calling this a terrible, terrible accident.
Tracy, you just talked about the investigators there who are trying to track down experts with this kind of machinery. How difficult has that task actually been?
Well, Wilma, actually, it wasn't easy because, again, this piece of machinery dates back to 1980. A lot of people who own these old farm machines, they take them apart, they put them back together again. And again, the only person who really knew this particular piece of machinery very, very well was Kovacic himself.
And we understand Kovacic drove that tractor about a mile to the fairgrounds. Do investigators think that that played a role in the accident?
Tim, it's hard to tell at this point, but investigators aren't ruling out anything. They say it is a possibility that maybe he ran out of water on the way here, or maybe it malfunctioned once he was parked here on the fairgrounds. Those are answers that we don't have the answers to right now.
So many unanswered questions. The investigation continues. All right, Tracy, thank you. Chuck Kovacic is comforted by friends and loved ones one day after losing his brother, 47-year-old Clifford, and nephew, 26-year-old Billy. Chuck says the father and son shared a passion for antique farm equipment. They spent the last 2 years restoring the case steam tractor that would eventually kill them both.
Disbelief. Disbelief. I just sunk to my knees.
Family friend Misha Good fights back the tears as she pulls secretary duty at Kovacic's excavating company.
It physically burns over 35% of her body.
Good's husband Tinker was helping move the locomotive-like tractor at the time it exploded. Tinker survived.
I felt guilty for that, but I was so glad that he was in the truck and he wasn't hurt.
Kovacic was the father of 3, 2 sons and a daughter.
People like Clifford, he enjoyed life, loved his family to the fullest. I mean, his kids, his wife were everything to him.
He liked the steam tractors. He liked the history of the agricultural part of it.
46-year-old Alan Kimble died in that explosion. Kimble family friend Ray Lurtz was one engagement away from being in the middle of that front page news.
It was because of the family picnic that I wasn't there.
58-year-old Dennis Jungbluth was the fourth to die in the explosion. They were four best friends who shared a unique passion for the past that will live beyond them in the restorations they've created. Kovacic's brother says Cliff tested the steam tractor in a farm field by pulling an antique plow behind it just 2 weeks before this explosion. And the victim's brother says the tractor was running better than it did when it was originally built at that time. Tim and Ramona?
Dave, Kovacic's daughter was also injured in this explosion. What's her condition now? We have an update on that?
Yeah, 23-year-old Elizabeth Kovacic is in stable condition tonight with 27% of her body burned by this explosion. You can expect a long road to recovery for her.
All right, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. There are 19 people still hospitalized from the blast. 1 is in critical condition. 5 are in serious condition. 1 good. 2 are listed as satisfactory. 10 people are considered by the doctors to be in stable condition. Among those hurt, a pair of Medina County policemen, who actually pulled over that steam tractor before it exploded.
Channel 3 News reporter Jennifer Murphy has more on these injuries.
Chris Conwell and Dave Soika are more than just partners, they're also best friends.
They're worried about each other more than they're worried about themselves.
Moments before the accident, the 2 Medina City police officers stopped the driver of the tractor. As they're giving him a ticket for driving in an unauthorized area, the steam engine explodes. Both men are badly burned.
It was horrible. It was horrible because it was like the knock on the door that you never want to get being an officer's wife.
Dawn Conwell is at home when she learns of her husband's injuries.
I just knew when I opened the door, and the look on their faces was just incredible, and I just knew in my heart.
A close group of police officers, family, and friends gather at the hospital. Ironically, it is Officer Conwell who offers support.
My mom and my dad, they're upset, and but my brother just keeps reassuring them it's going to be all right, and he's helping out a lot actually.
Both men suffered burns on 25 to 30% of their body. They are both recovering here in the burn unit at Akron Children's Hospital. Now, doctors say that burns are some of the most painful injuries. Certainly, they are going to need each other now more than ever as they begin this long road to recovery. Tim and Ramona, coming up at 7 o'clock, we'll also have the amazing story of 3 generations who were at the fair and only about 20 feet away from when the tractor exploded. We'll be hearing from them and how they managed to survive.
Jennifer Murphy at Children's Hospital. Thanks. Now, here is a recap of tonight's top story.
The Medina County Fair opened today despite yesterday's deadly explosion. Investigators say the blast may have been caused by the failure of an escape valve. At least 19 people remain hospitalized with injuries.
And our team coverage of the fairgrounds explosion continues on 23 News at 6:30. Reporter John Freese visits with some hero
valve or other safety device as the cause of the accident. In the wake of the tragedy, many communities are rethinking whether to allow steam-powered equipment to operate at a place where thousands of curious spectators are on hand.
We also must remember this was, although a very catastrophic incident, this was the first one in decades that we've had. And maybe it'll wake everybody up to focus on going back and taking a look at all their systems, just seeing how dangerous they can be.
Janice Edwards, Fox 8 News.
Thank you, Janice. Steam-powered tractors like the one that blew up were used before the internal combustion engine. Back in the 1800s, they were the only method farmers had to plow their fields. By the way, the tractor's owner had reported having trouble with it a few days before it exploded.
A brief recap now of what we know at this point. 4 people were killed and nearly 50 others injured yesterday evening when a steam-powered tractor exploded at the Medina County Fair. About 18 of the injured remain in area hospitals this evening. Investigators believe a safety device on the tractor failed, but it could be weeks before they actually pinpoint the cause here. Do stay with us tonight. We have continuing coverage of this fatal fairgrounds explosion. In fact, coming up, find out why you could still get into the fair just hours after this disaster. Details on the controversy over the decision to keep the fair up and running a little later in the newscast.
I guess they open the gates late.
The show goes on, so to speak, and coming up at 10, we'll talk to some emergency management people here who responded to last night's crisis and how they prepare for a tragedy which occurred on Sunday night. Reporting at the Medina County Fairgrounds, Mike Raymond, ONN News.
And that blast shot hot oil and shrapnel up to 100 yards. The force was so great it shattered car windows. The governor now says the state will look into what went wrong.
We are looking to determine whether there is the proper kind of regulation in place now to protect the public from such accidents. We're working with the Ohio Department of Agriculture right now, who works with county fairs to determine whether any laws were violated or whether there should be stronger laws in this area.
This year's fair is Medina County's 156th fair. The annual event drew 120,000 people last year. Now here's a wrap-up of the fair explosion from last night. Investigators now say the explosion may have been caused by a possible failure of an escape valve or other safety device. The blast killed 4 men and hurt about 50. At least 16 people are still in area hospitals tonight. And later,
injured from last night's explosion at the Medina County Fair. Find out what saved the lives of 2 men who were sitting right at ground zero.
And good evening, everyone. People in Medina are planning to gather in a prayer vigil tomorrow to remember those killed in yesterday's deadly fairgrounds explosion.
While tonight, investigators try to pinpoint exactly what caused a steam-powered tractor to explode. Several people brought flowers tonight to mark the scene of the blast that killed 4 people and injured dozens of others last night. Investigators tonight suspect that a possible failure of an escape valve or other safety devices may be responsible for the accident. The blast hurled hot oil and shrapnel up to 100 yards. No charges can be filed. The operators of the equipment died in the blast. The fair went on as scheduled today, but it opened 2 hours late so operators could finish setting up.
Well, dozens of people are nursing their injuries tonight, but sadly, 4 men will never come home. They are 58-year-old Dennis Jungbluth, who was on the tractor at the time it exploded, 45-year-old Clifford Kovacic, and his son, 27-year-old William Kovacic, along with 46-year-old Alan Kimble. All of the victims are from Medina County. Now, the home team's Wendy Gillette spoke exclusively with Alan Kimble's sister. Family members say Kimble was a devoted family man, a hard worker, and a generous friend.
A lot of times he was the glue. They call me the strong one, but I don't know whether that's true.
He was really strong.
Oh, yeah. You couldn't find a person with a bigger heart, and you couldn't find one person to argue that.
Kimble's sister says her brother and his friends ran the steam engine a month ago and didn't have any problems.
2 police officers on the scene of that explosion may have been saved by something designed to stop bullets, a bulletproof vest.
There was shrapnel actually embedded in some of the vest. Some of the burn and peppering from the explosion had gone all the way around the vest, and the vest had pretty much left a pattern on them. So.
Jim Bigham says not only hot oil, but metal pieces from the steam-powered tractor were launched at least 100 yards. Some of the sharp objects hit the officers, but because they were wearing the vests, only marks were left on the men.
Well, more than 100 people attended a stress debriefing last night after the explosion. The Summit Medina Critical Stress Team hosted meetings again today and tonight, all to help people from the various rescue teams deal with the tragedy that took place at the fairgrounds. Those who were first on the scene saw a horrific sight. One nurse called it the worst she has ever seen.
The American Red Cross is asking for your help tonight. They say there is an increased need for blood to treat the burn victims of the Medina County Fairgrounds explosion. If you would like to donate, call the Red Cross at this toll-free number, 1-800-GIVE-LIFE. They have all the information you need on blood drive times and locations.
Well, even though steam-powered engines can explode like bombs, the investigator Tom Meyer says they don't have to have inspections. State inspectors are helping investigate the blast, but the sheriff says it appears the steam engine built up too much pressure, more than the machine could handle. While it's not clear what went wrong, it is clear the antique tractor should not have been driven on a city road on the way to the fair.
That was abnormal because, as far as I've been able to find out, they always hauled them in on a trailer and unloaded them here.
Once it arrived at the fair, it was never inspected by the county or the state, and it doesn't have to be. While Ohio law requires that stationary boilers undergo annual inspections, portable boilers like those on antique steam tractors are exempt. Well, despite the danger, some area farmers still use steam-powered tractors.
The home team's Paul Orlowski caught up with one of them earlier tonight. He's joining us live now from the Medina County area with that story. Paul?
Well, Jack, it's not unusual to see these hulking machines. Typically, though, we see them, just as you do right here, on display at the county fair. Much more rare to see them actually operating. Well, after doing that tonight, I can tell you, you really come to realize just how complex they are, and more importantly, how many things can go wrong. This is the Vallon family's 1923 Huber, a steam engine built in Marion and used for years tilling Ohio's fields, according to Bob Vallon.
About 25, 30 years ago, we bought this out of an auction in Medina, and all we do is clean it up and take it to shows.
8 generations of Vallons have used the steam engine. Now it's a family hobby. 3 hours before it's time to roll, the fire has to be stoked. It burns wood, lots of wood. After a couple of hours, gears begin to turn, steam is beginning to flow, and it's beginning to drive a series of spindles, belts, and gears. The fire is hot now, very hot. It has to be monitored. A safety valve could prove to be the difference between life and death.
And once it gets up to about 140, 145, it'll start blowing off steam. And 150, it blows off.
The Vallon steamer is a different model from the one that exploded at the fair, but basically the operating principles are the same. You're boiling water to make steam and turn that into energy. But anytime you have superheated metal together with water, you're sitting on a virtual bomb.
Thin metal, water could have went down, safety valve might not have worked.
Bob says lots of things could have gone wrong at the fair. He's not willing to guess exactly what, but stresses safety items must be paid attention to.
This is our #1 thing on a steam engine. It's our sight glass. Right there's the water level. That shows me how much water is in this engine.
What happens if it runs dry?
It blows up.
That tells you something about the severity of what can happen if something goes wrong. You can see that people have been dropping flowers by throughout the evening, and as the camera pulls out and widens, you can see all that sand that's been put on the ground, hiding a huge scar in the ground from where the explosion actually occurred. The fair goes on. People are stopping by, spending a few moments, Jack and Denise, taking a look, thinking about it. But for the most part, flags are at half-staff, but the fair is going on.
And like we said earlier tonight, Paul, the folks who were injured or those who died would actually want it that way, I'm sure.
Well, they were all long-time participants here, so that's why people can put those words in their mouths, I suppose, because they've been coming here doing this year after year after year and enjoyed it, and it was part of their lives.
Exactly. Okay, thanks, Paul.
All right.
Well, the home team's Bill Saffos was one of the first reporters on the scene of the explosion yesterday. Home team viewers were getting the story right along with folks all around the country.
And injured dozens on Sunday. Bill Saffos of our Cleveland affiliate, WOIO, is at the scene of the accident. Bill, good morning.
Good morning, Bryant.
Bill reported on the accident for the CBS Early Show with Brian Kimble and Jane Clayson. And Bill was just one of our reporters on the scene last night, keeping you up to date on that developing story.
And recapping our top story right now, people in Medina will hold a prayer vigil tomorrow for the victims of last night's deadly explosion at the Medina County Fairgrounds. 12 people are still in the hospital tonight. Investigators still are not sure what caused the antique steam engine to blow up, but they're focusing on the engine's safety devices and have ruled out foul play. The explosion sent hot oil and shrapnel flying up to 100 yards. Police cannot file any charges. The engine's operators died in the blast. The fair went on today, but opened about 2 hours late.
And for up-to-the-minute information on the explosion, you can log on to HomeTeam19.com for all